council to order. Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis,
Here.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Here.
Mrs. Ingles,
Here.
Mr. Marshall,
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Here.
Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Soms,
Here.
Mr. Washington.
Here.
8 here, 0 absent.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to appoint a new member to the town council to fill a vacancy left by Councilor Tony Sibilia. Motion, please. Mrs. McGrattan,
I make a motion to appoint Nicole Cruz Glacken to the town council to fill a vacancy left by Councilor Tony Sibilia in accordance with Chapter 2, Section 10 of the town charter.
Second, Councilor Soms.
motion's made and seconded. Is there any discussion before the vote? Any discussion before the vote? Mr. Soms.
I actually have a prepared statement. So I'm going to read section 10 of the town charter, or parts of it. It says, any vacancy in any elective town office from whatever cause arising shall, except as otherwise provided in the general statutes, be filled by appointment by the town council for the period until the next regular town election. It goes on about the other elections, and then it continues. And it says, in filling any vacancy, the town council shall select a person of the same political party as that of the former office holder. And then it goes on about independents in other cases. But it says nothing about either the Republican or the Democratic town committee appointing a candidate. It also doesn't say they can't do that. So as of tonight, the town council has received over 26 letters supporting Nicole's candidacy. Some of them from people I highly respect, and I've read every one of them. Contrary to what some of the letters state, the RTC, the Republican Town Council, in the past, recent past, did nominate a candidate, and the town council chose to exercise its rights under the town charter, interviewed and selected a different candidate than the RTC recommended. I nominated a candidate to the town council who has over 10 years of experience working with Ledyard Music, Ledyard Dispatch, as director of Ledyard Volunteer Emergency Services, and he works for other towns as a musician, as a paramedic, and as a dispatcher. He is also a full-time teacher. I put that person forward to the town council in accordance with the town charter, and the DTC, the Democratic Town Committee, insisted the person withdraw their nomination, which he did. So now we're left with only one choice. I believe Nicole is a fine person, and I think she would be a great addition to the town council. But neither party's town committee has the right to force the council in choosing a replacement. I believe we have to treat Black, Indigenous, and people of color better. It's been over 400 years, and we're still not doing that. If I were one, I'd be angry too. But forcing the town council is not the right way to move us forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Soms. Any other comments from town councilors? Mr. Washington.
This is since this is an opportunity for discussion before the vote. I think Nicole has some great opportunities. I think one of the things though for this position that I'm trying to wrap my head around is I put a big value on experience in town government. Okay, you talk. I spent a lot of years in the Wetland Commission. Sat as the vice chair. I think there's an important portion of that, and I'll just leave it at that.
Any other comments of town councilors? I would just like to say that for the past several years, this town council has worked in bipartisan cooperation to do some very worthwhile work, including a new police station and surprisingly a $60 million school project in a very conservative climate. We could never have done that if we had not worked together to pass those two projects. Also, despite the council being made up of 6 Republicans and 3 Democrats, as chair, I appointed 2 Democrats to serve as chairman, 2 of our 4 regular committees. It wasn't the political thing to do and not something that I think has ever been done before, but it was the right thing to do. My no vote this evening is because I want to keep that bipartisan spirit. About 3 weeks ago, Councilor Ingalls made a statement that Mrs. Cruz-Glacken strongly disagreed with. But rather than reach out to her for clarification or understanding, she made a sign, organized a protest at Ledyard Town Hall, and called for Councilor Ingalls' resignation on the committee. I'm not sure who called the newspaper. I want to work on a town council that works together cooperatively as we have. Or maybe we've been spoiled for the past 10 years because although we have disagreed, we have worked together. And again, we've passed and done some really great work. I don't want to need to worry about the repercussions if there's a difference of opinion. I want to work with counselors who will communicate with others rather than social media or the public first. That is my statement. Any other counselors have anything to say or add? No one? Okay, at this time, Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Marshall?
Sorry, not to call the roll. Yes, call the roll.
Mr. Marshall?
No.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Ryan?
No.
Mr. Soms?
No.
Mr. Washington?
No.
Mrs. Davis?
No.
Mr. Dombrowski?
No.
Mrs. Ingalls?
No.
1 yes, 7 no.
Motion fails. We do not have any presentations at this time. At this time, I will open it up to residents and property owners and reminding them that we do have a limit of 3 minutes. I think somebody is in the chat. Was that you, Rebecca? Yes. I'll call on you at this time if you just state your name and address again.
Rebecca Gravener, 42 Eagle Ridge Drive. I'm going to have to take some time and reflect on the comments and the vote that just occurred. I won't be speaking about that right now. What I will be speaking about, though, is actually, you've just proven my point. I had a question regarding how the council, what's the policy's response to responding to resident emails and correspondence? Where is your sense of responsibility in responding to emails and correspondence? I have sent several emails over the last few months written directly to specific counselors as well as in general to the council. And I have received nothing, no response. Even a thank you for your correspondence is better than the wall of silence that citizens are met with. The council often asks for residents to participate, and it should be a two-way street. Some kind of response I should expect some sort of response from the people that have been elected to serve me as a resident. So if someone could clarify for me what is the council's responsibility in responding to residents, I would greatly appreciate that.
Thank you for your comment. I agree we could get better at that, and I will promise that we will. I hope that's an acceptable answer. Any other comments from citizens? I see none in the queue at any rate. Or there are, let's see, any committee, commission, or board reports? I don't see any committee or commissions here. Comments of town councilors. Any further comments? Ms. McGrattan.
Okay. A few weeks ago, Karen Parkinson, as this year's chairman of the Tri-Town Trail Committee, Trail Committee, spoke to the Ledyard Rotary and updated the Rotary on the progress of the Tri-Town Trail. She was talking about the northern end of the trail, which starts on Route 117, directly across from the Preston Park. The Tri-Town Trail extends another 15 miles south through Ledyard and ends at Bluff Point in Groton. The volunteers working on this project have been clearing and cutting back brush to create trails. They have constructed bog bridges and made an aluminum bridge from a kit. All this to cross the streams and wetlands. All of the supplies and materials had to be hand carried in from the street. The committees also had to get easements from property owners to be able to walk through their property. All the work that I just described is being done by volunteers from Ledyard and many towns in southeastern Connecticut. The amazing thing is many of the volunteers are over the age of 65. They feel passionate about preserving the land for their children, grandchildren, and future generations. My hat is off to all the volunteers.
Thank you, Mary. That was well said. At this time, before I call for any other counselor comments, I missed Ann Holland. Ann, would you like to address the council at this time? And Ann did state her address in the chat box as 824 Colonel Ledyard Highway. Ann, your mute button is on. Okay, we'll go back to her if she can hear us at some point. Any other council comments? I would just like to clarify one thing that Bill said that I had planned to clarify now, but I will do it again just as a reinforcement. In the many letters we received, one writer said that not accepting the DTC recommendation would be unprecedented. Well, hardly. It was only 2 years ago that we did not select the unanimous RTC endorsed candidate and instead selected Mr. Washington. A search through town council history will show many other examples of this. And I just wanted to clarify that because I saw that trend running through some of the letters, and perhaps it's people that are new in town government that don't understand the process, but Bill rightly pointed it out, and I also wanted to mention that. Now, are there any other town councilor comments? And it looked like Ann came back. Ann, would you like to address the town council at this time?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
So there's a couple things that I need to clarify because I cannot allow that your decision was based on a protest that Nicole had, because I had a part in it too, and so did my daughter. And it wasn't to be argumentative, and it wasn't intended to seem however you want to interpret it, however your perception of the protest was, but it was to bring awareness to what our town council members are discussing, because not a lot of people know this. And when the residents of Ledyard and Gales Ferry read of it and heard about it and it had attention, there was many people that came to this meeting expecting answers. And there was many people emailing you all expecting answers, and we have nothing. Andrea Ingalls said what she said, and none of us got an answer. So we can assume that it's the worst case scenario if you're not going to even offer an explanation. And this is why even people saying there's no response to any of the emails or any of the contact we've reached out to you guys. What is our expectation when you are elected officials? What is our expectation of you guys if you're not even going to communicate with us? We're going to assume things. So if you don't clarify what you mean and literally mean what you say, then we're not going to have any other option but to form our own idea of what you're saying, and to have the opposite of injustice. Social justice is injustice. That's it. So anyways, Nicole being supported by everyone and Bill Soms going and referring someone else that clearly voted for Nicole, and now he's on the town council, really does not make any sense to me. And you had the perfect opportunity to address that situation with Andre Ingalls to prove that you guys were not like that. You had the perfect opportunity of this time to prove that you are not like that. And we don't need to sit here and keep wondering, when are you going to prove to us what you really say and mean what you say? Because that's important to me, to have you people represent us and not just kind of do a free for all, what you think is right and what benefits you. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comment. At this time, I'm going to go back to council comments. Were there any further council comments? Hearing none, let us review.
Linda,
Andra, Heather, Andra.
yeah, I'll say, I did share a public comment. I did. I read a public statement. And I shared a couple of stories about a friend of mine who's a teacher at a school in another state. And how some of the social justice issues have played out. And there was one in particular that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. And it's how the cultural competency training, and I realize it goes by slightly different names, different applications in different places, but this woman who is a Black math department chair, because of cultural competency training, has been put in a position where she now has to teach her students that math is white space and is being required to adjust down the rubric for grading her students. I can't, and she's devastated. She's just devastated. So I did, if I don't know if you'd like to go back and I did share a public statement. So I just wanted to share that that's where it's coming from. There's a lot to talk about here. And it does affect a lot of people. So that's all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to, I'll entertain a motion to approve the following regular meeting minutes of June 9th and June 16th. Is there a motion, please?
So moved,
Council-
Councilor Ryan.
Second, Councilor Dombrowski.
Motion's made and seconded. Any corrections, additions? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingalls,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. You have your communication list. I made no referrals. Admin committee report.
The Administration Committee has not met since the last council meeting, but we have three items on the agenda.
Community relations.
Community Relations Committee has not met since the last council meeting.
Okay. Finance, Bill.
Town Council Finance Committee held its regular meeting last Wednesday, June 16 at 5 p.m. No new information at that time had been received regarding the American Rescue Act funding. But the committee discussed the long-term plan for fire engines and their replacement with the Director of Emergency Services, Steve Holyfield. We have several issues with our equipment. The frame rails on engine R13, which is 18 years old, are rusting, and the unit needs to be replaced sooner than planned. In addition, Ledyard Fire Company has been without a tanker for too long. The reserve engine, known as the Green Goblin R12, will be sold as soon as repairs to R11, getting a new Cummins engine, are complete. Heavy rescue engine R17, purchased in 1997, can be retired without replacement, and the equipment it carries can be carried on other vehicles. The committee discussed these options with Mr. Holyfield and agreed to continue the discussion at its next meeting, and everything else is on the agenda for tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for finance? Land use.
Land use has not met since our last meeting. I have no report.
Liaison reports. Any liaison reports? Oh, Mr. Dombrowski.
The only liaison report I want to report is on the ad hoc committee for the zoning regulation rewrite. They've been working through all of it. We're hoping tomorrow night will be our last meeting. We'll do a final review of the draft regulations, and so the committee's done a real good job.
Thank you. Any other liaison? Mr. Soms.
WPCA met last night at 7 p.m. Hydrant flushing is complete on Route 12, and Groton Utilities is now working their way up Route 117, so the Highlands can expect hydrant flushing soon. The WPCA began discussing insurance coverage for the following unused buildings: the Loftus Pump House building at 100 Gallop Hill Road, Sablewoods Pump House, Ledyard Village Pump House, and Avery Hill Trailer Park Pump House. Only that one has been demolished, but we need to make decisions on the others because we're paying insurance on them. The sewer study that's underway for Ledyard Center should be complete by the end of July. The WPCA also discussed a request for a water line extension on Oak Ridge Drive to 3 houses. At the request of the mayor, the WPCA reviewed photos and discussed whether it's time to repaint the Ledyard Center water tank. The tank was built approximately 15 years old, and photos of the top of the tank show lichen and or pollution stains. The condition of the paint on the top of the tank could not be determined from the photos, so Groton Utilities will evaluate the entire tank inside and out since it was last evaluated 5 years ago. Also, one of 3 sewer plant influent pumps that move untreated sewage from a collection tank into the sequential batch reactors has failed and is being rebuilt while pumps 2 and 3 carry the load. Valves have seized, so the pumps can't be isolated, and the entire pump system is underground. An engineering estimate suggests it could cost $60,000 to $100,000 to rebuild and bring the pumps above ground because they're too difficult to service in their present underground location. The WPCA will seek competitive bids for repair and or redesign the pump system. And past due receivables increased to $10,500 from the $1,000 we saw in April, which was the lowest amount in recent history. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Soms? Any other liaison reports? Seeing none. Mayor Allen.
Thank you, everybody. So I'll skip over some stuff kind of quickly. I know you've heard me like a broken record on COVID, but the last 2 weeks have been super promising, 9 to 11 cases on a weekly basis. And that is over the 10-town legislative district. So that's the lowest since last August of 2020. Positivity rates down to a 0.344, and there are 0 people hospitalized in New London County and just 1 in all of Eastern Connecticut. So I think we're doing really, really well, probably as a state as a whole, but Eastern Connecticut even better. Vaccinations still continue to increase, but still at a decreasing rate. So fewer people are choosing to get the vaccine. If you're in the area of the senior center, stop in and take a look at the new upgraded lighting in the what is called the Dieter room. It's the large room on the left. They just did a nice LED lighting upgrade in there, and the lights are sensitive to the outside lighting. So if it's a nice sunny day, they dim themselves, and if it's a cloudier day, they bring themselves up, and they can be overridden, but very nice. Public Works started on the steep grant work at the town green. The parking lot lights are now complete. They had just increased the parking at the north edge of the property, which is where the food pantry is, kind of at the tail end of the parking that was part of the Ledyard Center School. The pressure-treated guardrail that you see present on the property now is being extended along there as well. And they are going to be putting that same pressure-treated guardrail in along the end caps of each of the rows of parking down below to kind of better differentiate the parking areas. And the pavilion lighting for the lower pavilion will be starting early July. So that'll be a nice upgrade too, because the darker days will be much better lit in there. Our new planner starts on July 1st. Liz Burdick is here with us now. She has done a magnificent job of Karen continuing to carry the ball for us in her absence and prior to Juliet starting. So thank you for that. I attended the CCM legislative wrap-up on June 16th. The bottle bill actually passed. So the nickel per can or bottle will be going to a dime effective January 1st, 2024. They did include more containers like tea bottles and water bottles and things like that in the bottle bill, which is also a plus. The NIP surcharge, so the mini bottles that we pick up all over the roads, the liquor lobby was successful in heading that off. So what they ultimately ended up doing was a nickel surcharge per NIP bottle. So if it is sold in the town of Ledyard, those funds will be paid semi-annually to the town. The funds can only be used for litter mitigation. And our first payment for that nickel surcharge is October of 2021. They also approved organic digesters, which is a deep pilot. That's important because SCARA is looking to do a organic digester, which essentially amounts to taking all your food scraps and turning it into topsoil and directing it out of our trash stream, which is a big plus. I moderated the COG meeting today for municipal uses of ARPA funding. Let me back up. We received guidance, a 27-page book last week on it, only to find out that today we got a new 30-page replacement book for that. So that has been sent on to finance for discussions. And now I'm going to reread the replacement 30-pager and find out what has changed. But utility extensions seem to be pretty commonly spoke about for uses of the funds. There is a way to direct funds to some nonprofits, and I think that's something else we can talk about and consider. So that'll be picked up at our following meeting. I attended the 35th anniversary of AA Lock and Key. That was great. That's a nice small town, hometown business that started from a kind of a tech school class in the back of a van, and they've done incredibly well for 35 years. You'll also notice that the Ledyard Fair continues to remove their equipment down the bottom corner of the town green. They have an extension to keep stuff there until June 30th, which is actually just about a week away. So that's coming up quick. And then the last thing I wanted to share with you is that our COG meetings are resuming live and in person on July 21st. So for the first time in about a year and a half, I will be there presiding over a meeting in person. That's it.
Any questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor.
Quite welcome.
No questions? Okay, we have no old business. Would anybody like to amend the agenda under new business? Hearing none, admin, we'll start with you.
Okay. I make a motion to adopt a proposed revised police lieutenant job description as contained in the draft May 2021.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion.
Chief Rich answered the few questions that we had, but overall the committee agreed with the revisions, and so we bring it to you for approval.
Thank you. Any other questions from councilors? Mr. Washington. You're on mute. You have your one chance to be on mute.
That's it. This is just, if just checking my memory on this one. This was about separating out the administrative and the field duties, so that there'd be a better control for both the administrative side and the field side of staff.
Yes, and Chief Rich is on the line if you have any further questions.
Chief.
I'm
you there,
sorry.
Chief?
You're on mute, Chief.
Now I'm off mute. I am
Okay.
here.
Just as a refresher, Chief, just so, and Mary, Councilor McGrattan has kind of verified it, but this is really a function of knowing that the way the department's set up with it, you got field and administrative side, and with the new things that are coming in relative to trying to be to improve the department in general and mandates that are coming down from the state, that's driving the administrative needs for the department up. And so the plan is to separate out the administrative need from the field need so that there's, I don't like using this word, but I use it a lot at work, accountability. So it's easy to check, okay, you're in charge of this, you're in charge of that. So there's no gaps in the system. Is that the intent again?
Yes, sir. That's exactly correct. And we had spoken about, the department's desire and work toward becoming accredited by the Police Officer Standards and Training Council, and that being heavily discussed in the legislature in the police accountability discussion. And that's something that we're looking forward to. We also have additional technology coming online, hopefully by the end of the summer, with body worn cameras, which will have an additional administrative load on the department. So those are some of the things that we talked about as it relates to that planning. And it was discussed in prior town council meeting before the budget was passed as well.
Thank you, Chief Rich.
Any other questions? Roxanne, would you call the roll?
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan.
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
I make a motion to adopt a proposed new police captain job description as contained in the draft dated May 2021.
Second.
Discussion.
Okay, this, in the budget just recently passed, we approved a police captain job. And this is the job description that goes with that. It is not necessarily for anybody. The functions and requirements come from other police departments. So if the person that they have in mind leaves this, we could find another replacement. And the chief answered some questions and the administration committee approved it as presented.
Any questions for admin? Thank you for your work on that committee, Councilor McGrattan and the committee. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item.
Okay. I make a motion to appoint Paul Whitescarver, Republican of 6 Stoddard's View, Gales Ferry, to the Planning and Zoning Commission as an alternate member for a 3-year term ending December 31st, 2022, to complete a vacancy left by Mr. Timothy Ryan.
Second, Councilor Ryan.
We had a little discussion on this and the committee approved him to be presented to you.
Thank you. I would add that if you remember, and I don't remember how many people remember these details, but Mr. Whitescarver had been on EDC and had to resign. But the reason he had to resign was purely because of his work schedule. He wants to serve, and this committee allows him to serve despite his work schedule. Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes,
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
motion carries. Moving on to finance.
This is Counselor Solms. I move to authorize the mayor to submit, sign, and administer an application for an affordable housing plan technical assistance grant, round 2, from the state of Connecticut Department of Housing for up to $15,000 in funding to enable the town to undertake a proactive planning process and lay out a strategy for meeting the housing needs of existing and future residents and workers, in that addressing Connecticut's housing affordability crisis with thoughtful planning for homes that meet the needs of individuals and families at different income levels and stages of life is an economic imperative for our state and critical to sustaining thriving local communities.
Is there a
In
second?
addition, in addition,
I'm sorry. In addition, adopt a proposed certified resolution of application, affordable housing plan, Town of Ledyard, as contained in the draft dated June 15, 2021.
Is there
Counselor
a
Ingalls seconds.
the
Counselor?
second,
Yes, Counselor Ingalls made the second.
thank you.
So this is funding that's available on a first come, first served basis. There is no town match. It will provide us with assistance in reviewing our current affordable housing plan. The town has done a considerable amount of work in developing its affordable housing plan. It has areas, zones, which are designated for affordable housing, and we have also approved some affordable housing developments in other areas of the town. This will help us to right size our affordable housing. And again, it's first come, first serve. We feel it would be of great assistance to the Planning and Zoning Commission, as the chairman of the commission joined us at the finance meeting last week.
Any questions? Mr. Marshall?
Thank you. Bill, quick question. Does the threshold of affordable housing go up and down with the market? Or is that a fixed formula?
I believe it does via a formula, but I'm not an expert on that, John, so I'm probably not qualified to answer, but I see Liz Burdick and she might be able to answer that for us.
Yes, good evening, counselors. Mr. Marshall, the affordable housing is based on the average median income for the town. And you will have an affordable housing plan when you do an affordable housing development, and it has to be, you have to submit that plan with your application for development. Affordable housing is based on average median income. So just for example, I think the one that was done along Cove Road was based on an average median income in Ledyard of $90,000. So a certain number of units have to be designated for folks that make 80% of that, and a certain number of units has to be designated for folks that make 60% of that. The other can be market rate. Does that
Okay,
answer your
thank you for
question?
that reminder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, thank you.
The town, I'll just add that the town shall adopt an affordable housing plan by July of 2022. This funding has no town match, which is, almost, never seen with grants. And this will give the new town planner, as well as the Planning and Zoning Commission, some funding to be able to get, data. Perhaps hire someone to get us the newest data and sort of move things along more quickly. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any other questions? Hearing none, Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
yes,
Mr. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Soms,
Yes.
Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes,
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Let's, see. Next item, Bill.
This is Counselor Solms. I move to approve the request for funds necessary to implement the proposal between Town of Ledyard and the General Teamsters Union, Local 493, for the period of July 1, 2021 to June 30, 2024.
Is there a
Second.
second, please?
Second, Counselor Dombrowski.
So we have completed our negotiations with the Teamsters Union for a 4-year contract. The general wage increase is 2.35% in each of those years, a little more than we've approved in the past, but we know that having recently checked the forecast inflation rate, this is a reasonable general wage. It's actually advantageous to the town. The other big thing is we wanted our Teamsters members to be saving for their retirement. So the town has for a number of years been increasing the contribution, the required contribution or the mandatory contribution to retirement, and also matching at the same rate. So there's an escalation in this contract of 6, 8, and 10%. I'm sorry, 6, 8, 9, 10. Those are the two big ones.
I would also add, Counselor Solms, that for the public, that contract negotiations take place in executive session. And so this was discussed in executive session, and then a vote comes to the floor of the town council. Any other questions or discussion? Roxanne, would you call the roll, please?
Mrs. Ingles,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan,
Yes.
Mr. Ryan,
Yeah, me.
Yes.
You got 2 times this time.
I was
Mr.
one.
Son-
Come on.
Whoops.
What did you call me?
Mr. Son-
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Washington,
Yes.
Mrs. Davis,
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski,
Yes.
8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion carries. Okay, let's discuss our summer meeting schedule. I am assuming, Roxanne, you have your calendar in front of you. And with our normal meetings, and let's start with July, would be on which dates?
Our normal meetings would be the 14th and the 28th.
Of July, and then August?
August will be the 11th and the 25th.
Okay, so let's, I assume for those that are taking summer vacations, you probably know what those dates are. Are there any dates that jump out at you as far as not being able to attend? What we're going to try to do here is see if there's like one meeting where there's a lot of people not available.
I know I won't be able to make the 25th of August.
Okay,
Right now, the 28th of July, and there may be, I'm not sure, it depends. My son's got soccer tournaments and if he makes the nationals, I'm not sure where we're going to be and what the date will be.
well,
So-
we hope, we'd like to see you, but we hope he makes the nationals.
Thank you.
Anyone else with schedules to worry about? Bill?
Yeah, I'm going to be difficult and say that I'm unavailable on the 19th of August. I'm sorry, the 12th. We meet on the 12th. So I'm away for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Well,
it's okay. We don't need you on the 12th. The 11th?
Yeah, the 11th too.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, well, it looks like we don't have a group of people not being attending on a particular date. So what do we typically do, Roxanne?
We, in the past years, we've typically canceled the first meeting of each month.
Okay,
So
so
that would have been July 14th and August 11th, or, we could go the second if, that's better though.
well, it looks to me like there's one person that can't attend almost every meeting. So I don't think we could sit here all night and try to work this out. So I say we go ahead, unless anybody objects, we will cancel the 14th and the 11th, 14th of July and the 11th of August. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if it
Yeah,
turns
that's
out
fine.
that we need a special meeting, as always, we can always hold a special meeting. Nice to see you here, Mr. Sibilia.
Thanks.
Good luck in your new endeavors. We'll be keeping an eye on you for sure. And I'm
Much
sure you'll be
appreciated.
keeping an eye on us.
Oh, absolutely. I got too much vested in you guys.
Mr. Psalms?
It completely escaped me. I wanted to say in the council comments what a pleasure it's been to have Tony on the town council.
Mhm.
He's
Here.
always in touch. He knows what's going on in the community. He learned quickly. He pays attention, and he's a good guy to work with. So thank you, Tony, for your service.
Thank
Agreed.
you, Bill.
You'll
Agreed.
be missed.
Okay, and on that note, Mr. Dombrowski. Oh, wait a
Hold
minute.
it, Mary's got it.
Did we decide on a date in July and August? Is it going to be the second meeting?
Yeah,
in-
we have canceled the 14th and the 11th. We will be meeting on the 28th and the 25th.
Okay, okay,
Okay.
okay. Yep.
Now, Mr. Dombrowski and Mr. Ryan.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's made, second, this meeting is adjourned without exception. Thank
Good
you,
night,
everybody.
Thank you.
I
Take
am.
care.
Everyone.
Fine.
Night.
Everybody.